think that there's incredible opportunities for our student athletes coming, but we need a national standard. Everyone expects us to play a national competition schedule, and we go all over the 50 states. That not having a national standard will cause major disruption. You're already seeing across the country the wide-ranging disparity at times depending on what state you're in and what people are able to do. And so that's one. Second is we have to have some help on antitrust. We can't sustain constant litigation to the enterprise of college athletics. That has to be wrapped into it. I think the third element for name, image, and likeness for us as we look into the future is what can we do to help our student athletes once they leave school from a medical standpoint? Can we provide some additional medical care for them? Can we mandate that 2-3 years, whatever that looks like over a period of time? Some schools are doing it, but we certainly don't have uniformity across 351 schools, at least at the Division I level. Can we mandate also an opportunity for all student athletes to come back to school? That can be wrapped into this legislation. And then finally, it can't be a recruiting advantage. It just can't. And the equity from those resources have to be equally distributed. Most of our student athletes, the 500,000 that compete nationally, are Olympic sports student athletes. So that continues to be the mantra and call. What I hope doesn't happen is that because we've had some success here and we've seen these great stories of student athletes being able to use, rightly so, just like students, their name, image, and likeness, that we lose the sense of urgency. In our conference, and I'll finish here, in our conference, we have 4 schools with state legislation, or 4 states with state legislation. We have 2 with state directives, and we have 4 that rely on the NCAA rule. And you can see within our 15 schools and our 10 states, there's an unevenness to what student athletes can do. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. We need federal help, and I think that we'll get it, but I hope it's sooner rather than later.
We'll take our next question. We're going to stay on your left side, right there in a 3rd row. Let us get you the mic. Name and affiliation, please.
Hi, Mark Berman of the Roanoke Times. As you look to the future of the NCAA itself, what's your preference for how you would like to see the NCAA evolve or devolve, as it were? And do you still have confidence in Mark Emmert to lead it?
So I would say this. This is the right time to have a complete holistic review of the NCAA. Leadership, structure, what do we want to do moving forward? There's been so many things that have happened in our space here that the timing's right. No predetermined outcomes. Let's take a look. When I look at what we really are super reliant on from an Indianapolis perspective, governance. What's the governance structure look like? Do we have the right governance structure? One size fits all? Is the council working? They're working incredibly hard, but is that the right structure? Again, all sizes, shapes within 351. Championships, we've had a couple issues this year with championships. It's the thing our student athletes love to do. So an assessment there, championships, and then enforcement. I'm getting ready to go in August with one of our schools to Indianapolis. Some of those student athletes on that team that will be subjected to whatever penalties potentially could be handed down, we're in middle school. We're in middle school. And so timeliness, fairness in the system. That being said, the NCAA also has done a lot of great things and continues to do some really good work. So this thing isn't dumped on Indianapolis. I think we all have our fingerprints on the responsibility we have as leaders, whether it's commissioners or athletic directors or presidents. So again, this would be a great time. President Emmert has kind of called for it, kind of a recalibration of the NCAA. I think we should take him up on that opportunity, and let's work collaboratively with the NCAA, with our conferences, with our presidents, athletic directors and such, and let's spend the next 8, 12 months figuring this thing out, because more changes is coming.
We're going to stay over on our left-hand side in the back.
Hi, Jim. Mike Nislek from the Roanoke Times. Posted your announcement about the Virginia Tech Notre Dame game on social media, and some fans are frustrated. They rely on Comcast and can't get the network. Has there been any progress made in a deal? Because many areas in our state have, that's the only option, Comcast and ACC Network obviously on there. Can you speak to the progress that's been made on possibly getting it before the season?
Thanks for being here, and appreciate the question. It's one of the top priorities I've had. I've been to Bristol. I had some great conversations. Jimmy Pitaro, Burke Magnus, and the group. We have a tremendous relationship. Distribution is critical for us. And when I visited those 15 institutions, that was kind of the cry of all of our schools is, how do we get distribution wider? I think we have a great plan coming up. A lot of the carriers and providers, including Comcast, renewals coming up this late summer and into the fall, and I think we're making tremendous progress with them. Those frustrations are real, and we'll never be the conference that we need to be until we get some of those issues taken care of. So I think we have a great strategy. It's been top of point every conversation that we've had with our TV partners. They understand it, they get it. And so we're hopeful to make a big dent in the distribution piece coming up.
Come back over here to the aisle, the middle aisle on our left. Luke, raise your hand, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Jim. Luke DeCock, Raleigh News and Observer. Jack Swarbrick said that if the 12-team playoff goes through, he likes the way that it would set up for Notre Dame, and it kind of removes the imperative of having to play in a conference championship to have access to a national championship. How would you assess the sort of role of Notre Dame in the ACC going forward if there isn't any possibility at any point that Notre Dame would potentially give up football independence? And how do you sort of assess that relationship as it's working now? I mean, you've got the Notre Dame logo behind you, and they're not here.
Amy. I'm just kidding about the logo. Listen, I guess I'll work present time to past to maybe to the future, so I'll jump around a little bit. I think we all got a glimpse of what it would be like to have Notre Dame in the conference this past fall. That was a really beautiful and beneficial relationship to both Notre Dame and the ACC. They had a chance to play a fantastic schedule. They had a chance to vie for a national championship and compete in the CFP. So we have a real life example of what that could look like. When I look back, obviously I've spent time there. I think I have close ties there. I have a student athlete son there and a daughter. And so I think I know the institution, I think, pretty well. They're led by a terrific president, John Jenkins, and Jack Swarbrick, as you mentioned, Luke. In 2013, when they joined the league, they declared they were excited about being in all their sports, but they valued independence greatly. And I respect that. The old kind of, quip is Notre Dame loves two things. One is being Catholic. Second is independence. And sometimes those things get in reverse order. Sometimes they like independence even being more than Catholic. That's supposed to be a joke, but it didn't go over very well. Listen, they know the ACC's interest. It's been less than bashful. It's been less than bashful since I've been here. But I also respect where they're at, and I respect where we're at. And our concentration right now is on our 14 schools. And so who knows where the future is going to go. But I love the group of schools that we have. But you always have to be ready to add. And Notre Dame, contractually, if they were to join a conference, again, structured by Commissioner Swafford in 2013, would join the ACC. So that's where we're at, Luke. Appreciate the question, and we'll see where this goes.
Stay on the left-hand side of the aisle right here to our left. Tom, raise your hand, please.
Hi, Jim. Tom D'Angelo from Palm Beach Post. Getting back to the vaccines, many schools, including Notre Dame, are implementing athletes, students having to be vaccinated. Would you encourage that to your institutions? And if not, encourage some kind of protocols similar to the NFL is doing with greatly encouraging their players to get vaccinated?
We are encouraging. It's split. We have 7 institutions where it's mandated to be a student on campus. You have to get vaccinated, and it's not just split according to what you may believe, just publics and privates. Virginia Tech's a perfect example, being a public in the state of Virginia, what they've done. There's no question that there'll be a higher probability to be able to play for student athletes if they're vaccinated. I mean, you can just sense it and see it and feel it, and our policies are going in that direction too, though we're not ready to announce them today at the request of the medical advisory group. But if you're vaccinated, it's going to take you out of contact tracing issues and such. And as the medical experts have indicated, those that are vaccinated are subject to getting the virus at a much, much lower level than those that don't. So I believe in being vaccinated. I have a family of healthcare workers that have been on the front lines, but it's about us educating our student athletes. And again, I stand by my opening comments. It's such a personal decision. And so student athletes have to figure out what's best for them. And we're all hopeful that we can go through a season without any cancellation or forfeitures of any of our contests in any of our sports, and that our student athletes can stay healthy and safe.
Go over here on our left-hand side, far left, close to the doors.
Will Vandervoort with the Clemson Insider. I know you spoke a little bit about this at the spring meetings about the transfer portal and the conferences and coaches' concerns. Can you kind of go into a little bit more about that and what is exactly your concerns as the commissioner going forward with that and the issues it's caused this year, especially in men's basketball?
Yeah. It's likened to a game of musical chairs. That's what worries me, is the music stops and there's not enough chairs, there's not enough seats, there's not enough scholarships for those in the transfer portal. But the freedom of movement won out on that decision, and I completely agree with that. And I know as a former coach really early in my career how difficult that can be when it comes to rosters, when it comes to roster management, when it comes to maybe life lessons. When things get tough, you can't just bounce out and go somewhere else. So we're working through it as a league, understanding what it looks like in the different sports. As mentioned, with 27 sports, there's a different flow to the transfer the transfer experience. Some of our sports are really higher, that are at a higher percentage of student athletes transferring than some other Olympic sports. I don't think we have enough data yet to declare one way or another how we help this thing. But I think it goes back to recruiting and us doing the very best job that we can to identify the prospects that fit our institutions. So more work to come on that. And again, I feel the coach's frustration. It's real. But in the end, it was the right thing to do for our student athletes.
Have time for just a couple more. We're going to start over here. David.
Hey, Jim. David Hale with ESPN.
David.
You talked a little bit about the expanded playoff and the feedback that you've been asking for. I know Dabo yesterday noted that his team had suggested they were not thrilled about additional games. I know Mac Brown said similar comments about North Carolina's players. When you hear that feedback, how much does that figure into sort of the bigger picture view of the expanded playoffs? And is there a way to kind of address their concerns while still thinking about playoff expansion?
Thanks, David. Good to see you. Appreciate the question. There is. I don't want anybody to foreclose either good or bad on the playoff. We're still learning about the playoff, and the football coaches today are going to get the CFP presentation. And so they may feel exactly the same way, and I respect so much Mac and Dabo. I mean, those are two of our tremendous coaches. They have incredible experience. When I finished up in Dallas at the end of June on a Tuesday, we had CFP meetings Monday and Tuesday, and it was brought out that the 12-team playoff was recommended by the board. I had a Wednesday, like noon call with our head football coaches, and I asked them to do a few things. Get together and talk about it and discuss how they feel about it, to your point about too many games, length of season, health and safety issues, what does it do to the regular season, all of those things. But as importantly, talk to the student athletes and get a feel and a read. And so you're starting to see that. I saw Coach Sweeney's press statements yesterday, and I've seen, Coach Brown, I've talked to both of them pretty regularly, and I'll see him here later today and tomorrow. So those are real concerns, but I think we have to be open-minded to it. And it doesn't mean that we're going to support it. The last piece of your question, David, about will it influence us? It certainly will influence us, and it'll influence President Clemens, who ultimately has one of the votes. But I want us to socialize this process. I want us to socialize the proposal. I want it to be transparent. I want us to be able to hear from those constituent groups, student athletes and coaches, and then try to make have an educated position for our conference. There's some great things about it too. We talked a little bit about some of the really major challenges to this thing, but there's some terrific things about access and opportunity. The sport has access to 3% of the schools playing the sport of football. Most of our other sports are around 20% and above. Men's basketball is at 19%, but baseball and soccer and others are there. And so, there's debate to this thing, which is great, and we need that. And I'll look forward to, by September, as we get ready to have another CFP meeting, having the ACC have a position on where we stand.
Take our next question right here in the middle aisle on our left, please.
William Fauché, WUVA.
Can you raise your hand, please?
Right here.
Thank you.
I was wondering, in terms of recruiting and NIL and increasing the prominence of ACC football, does that worry you in terms of competing with other conferences like the SEC that are offering more and more potential economic upside to players?
That's back to the point about having a national standard. If we could all get on kind of same footing for all the reasons I described. But in the end, I love what we offer. I love the offer across our 14 schools in the sport of football, the academic and athletic balance, the competition, the coaches, the kinds of leaders we create in our programs, the games we play, the network we partner with. Certainly you can always look at a specific conference and compare and contrast. But I think if we can get some national legislation, we have a tremendous complement of schools that rivals anyone's in the country.
We're going to take our last question on the back left aisle.
Jim, David Teal from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. You mentioned earlier coming from a family of healthcare workers. You also come from a family of Olympic sport athletes. What have you told your two children who are Olympic sport athletes about NIL? And have either of them dabbled into name, image, and likeness monetization?
Good to see you, David. And they've taught me a lot. It's real when it's under your roof. As you mentioned, 2 of our 5 are current collegiate student athletes, 1 in the ACC, 1 in the Ivy, and they have some real ideas about it. And I think where it stands right now is a great start. It just is. So they're thinking about it, and they haven't quite dabbled in it, but they are considering some things, and that'll be fun because sometimes I wear my dad hat with them, and sometimes I wear my commissioner hat with them. So it's a kind of a neat role to be in. But it's good. I know it was a process getting to a point relative to name, image, and likeness, but it's like other iterations we've had in college sports. Most recently, when we had cost of attendance, and I was fortunate enough to chair the NCAA Council at that time, and I know the consternation that took place about cost of attendance. It's going to imbalance. Some schools can afford it, some schools can't. It's really going to hurt collegiate sports. It's been fantastic. The recipients have been our student athletes. So we'll get through this, we'll be stronger, but in the end, we do need to take a look at where we're at in college sports and really start to get together and do some assessing and do some long-range planning. So appreciate everyone being here, I really do. It's fantastic that we've been able to get together and see each other and be face-to-face. We'll continue to be available for you throughout the next couple days. Be safe in your travels. I look forward to seeing you on the different campuses as I get around in the fall, and always want to be available to you and deeply appreciate the work that you do and the importance that it has in college sports. So have a great day and go ACC. Thank you.